You have studied the texts. You know the names, the dates, the lineages. Good. That is the foundation. But tonight I want to tell you what the scrolls do not say plainly, what lives between the lines, what must be carried from one mouth to the next, because it is too large for ink. We are Magi. We are Median. Herodotus himself wrote it, and he was no friend of ours. But what Herodotus did not know, what he could not have known, is where we truly began. 700 years before I drew breath, the Assyrian king shattered the northern kingdom of Israel like a vessel thrown against stone. He carried the people away, tens of thousands, scattered them across his empire like seed on foreign soil. And some of them he sent here, to the cities of the Medes, to our cities. They came with nothing, no temple, no altar, no king, only their God and his promises. And those promises had teeth. You think our order began with us, with our robes, our stars, our rituals? No, it began with them, with Israelites who refused to forget, who spoke the prophecies to their children in a foreign tongue, on foreign ground, until the ground itself began to listen.
So, are we Israelites, Medes, Persians, modern Parthians?
Yes, we are all of those things. That is precisely the point. The God of Israel does not lose his seed. He plants it where he will, and it grows into whatever soil it finds. We are Median in tongue, Parthian in law, and Israelite in promise. And that is not a contradiction. It is a design. They married. They built homes. Their children learned our tongue and wore our clothes. And slowly, so slowly that no one marked the day it happened, their blood became our blood. But blood carries things. A Median woman sings her child to sleep with a melody her grandmother learned from an Israelite neighbor. A farmer in Ecbatana tells his sons about a God who made the world with words, not the old gods, not the fire, but a God who speaks, and it is. A merchant refuses to work on the seventh day, and when asked why, he cannot quite remember, only that his family has always done so. The prophecies were alive in the soil. We breathed them in before we knew what they were. And then Daniel came, 150 years later. The Babylonians, who had swallowed the Assyrians whole, they brought a new wave of Jews east, captives, scholars, noblemen, and among them a young man of terrifying clarity. Daniel did not assimilate. Daniel was placed above. Nebuchadnezzar, who ground nations to dust beneath his heel, made Daniel chief of all his wise men. Think about that. A Jewish captive set over every counselor, every seer, every astrologer in the empire. And what were those wise men called? Magi. Daniel, prophet of the Most High God, was chief of our order. He did not join us. We were placed under him. And he did not waste the position. He carried the prophecies into the heart of the order, the timeline, the signs, the promise of a king who would come, not from Babylon, not from Persia, not from Media, but from the line of David, a king of kings. And he wrote it down so precisely that a man could count the years. And then something remarkable happened. The kings themselves began to listen. Nebuchadnezzar, conqueror, destroyer, the golden head of the statue in his own dream, sent a decree throughout every province, in every language, that the God of Daniel was the living God, that his kingdom would not be destroyed. And Darius the Mede, who tried to save Daniel from his own law and failed, who spent a night pacing while a prophet slept among lions. Darius sent his own decree to every people, every nation, every tongue, that men should tremble before the God of Daniel. Two of the most powerful men who ever lived, telling the known world to fear a captive's God. And the Magi heard it. We heard it, because we were there. We had always been there, since the first Israelites arrived in our cities, since the first prophecy was whispered in a Median home. Daniel gave form to what we already carried. Now, there is a Greek, Herodotus. Some of you have read him. He traveled our lands long before my grandfather's grandfather drew breath. He wrote about our people, our customs, our priests. And when he described the Magi, when he traced where we came from, do you know what he wrote? That the Magi were a tribe of the Medes, not the Persians, not the Babylonians, the Medes, the very people among whom the Israelites had been planted 7 centuries earlier. A Greek with no stake in our prophecies, no knowledge of our God, looked at the Magi and pointed straight back to the soil where Israel's seed was sown. He didn't know what he was proving. So, follow the thread, follow it with me. Israelites are carried to the cities of the Medes. They carry their God. Their prophecies take root in Median soil. A century and a half later, Daniel, prophet, captive, and chief of the Magi, writes the timeline of the Messiah into the very heart of our order. Kings decree his God across the earth. The Magi listen. The Magi remember. And then centuries pass. Empires rise and fall. Babylon, Persia, the Greeks, and now Rome. The world forgets. But the Magi do not forget, because that is what we are. We are the ones who remember. I was 32 years old when the star appeared. We had counted Daniel's years. We had watched the signs. And when the light stood in the western sky, steady, impossible, patient, we knew. Not suspected, knew. The way you know the sun will rise. Because the math was right, and the prophecy was right, and the God who made both does not lie. We sent our best. The delegation rode west toward Judea with gold, frankincense, and myrrh, gifts chosen with precision, a scholar's precision. Gold for a king, incense for a priest, myrrh for a man who would die. They found him in Bethlehem, in a house, a child, small enough to hold in your arms, and they knelt. Magi from the Medes, kneeling before a Jewish child. 700 years after the first Israelites were dragged to our cities in chains. The Assyrians meant to destroy Israel. Instead, they planted us. This is what I leave you. Not my robes, not my name. This thread, from the deportation to the manger. Guard it, teach it. When someone asks why the Magi came, do not say we followed a star. Say we followed a promise, a light. One that was made to Israel and kept by God, and carried in our blood for 700 years, until the night it was fulfilled. The King of Kings has come, and we were there.